Welcome back to another episode of State of the Wizards. This is episode number 40. I'm your host, D-Can, along with my co-host, K. Jose, and we are the voices of the unheard. K. Jose, what's going on?
And nothing much, my brother. How you feeling this evening?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Tonight, K. Jose, we're going to briefly talk about last night's loss to the Sixers. And
Hmm.
afterwards, we're going to introduce a brand new segment called What We Disagreeing About, bro. Since we've been
All
known to
right.
agree with each other too much, let's bring in some topics we've been known to, disagree about.
Okay, absolutely.
Also, for you guys out there, despite the 3-17 start, what are some bright spots you've seen so far in the season, K. Jose? And are the Wizards ready to give the keys to Bilal Coulibaly on State of the Wizards? Before we get started, if this is your first time tuning in to the channel, thank you. Follow me at Wizards Mafia and follow my main man, K. Jose, at DC Hoopla on Twitter. Also, please follow us at State of the Wizards on Instagram and State of the Wizards on Twitter. All right, K. Jose, let's get started, my man.
All right.
So, I want to go ahead and turn our attention to last night's game. So about last night's game, K. Jose, what were some of the things that you saw that you liked in last night's game, and what were some of the things that you noticed we could have done to possibly come away and steal the victory?
Well, one of the things that I liked in last night's game that I would say the good was Bilal. I mean, the way this kid is playing, the steal that he had on Joel Embiid, dunking it. I mean, just the fact that he took the initiative to even guard Joel Embiid, who is a MVP player, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That just spells heart for the kid. Um, One of the things that I will say when it comes down to last night's game that also played a part in us losing was the free throw discrepancy.
Yeah,
When you look at the free throw discrepancy, we only went to the line 8 times to the 76ers going to the line 34 times.
yeah.
So when I look at these numbers, 56% from shooting from us, 51% for the 76ers. Um, Sorry about that. 40% shooting, from the downtown from us, 29%. We shot perfect for the free throw line, but again, I did say we went 8 times. You
Mm-hmm.
would think that we would win the game,
Mm-hmm.
but that free throw discrepancy, we also got out rebounded, which is pretty much the norm. I mean, the 76ers had 11 offensive rebounds to our two.
Yeah.
So, those little stats right there also plays a part in why we lost the game. And when you give up, Joel Embiid had 50 points.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody that can stop him.
Yeah.
But Maxey also put up 26, and we don't have anybody that can stop him. That just goes down to the perimeter.
Yeah.
So we actually have to get at least like a foundational piece that's a go-to guy that we can trust to close games. I believe Bilal can be that guy, but we're going to still need more than that. And we're going
Yeah.
to need a guy that's kind of similar to a Joel Embiid that can just go out there and just get a bucket whenever we need it. And that's what we're lacking as a team.
And Bilal played Joel Embiid tough. I mean, I know you saw what he said in his post game about guarding Joel Embiid. The kid has heart, man. I mean, he's
Oh,
just
absolutely.
I call him the beast. I think that, he is exactly that. I think he is a beast. I think that, right now he's like a caged animal ready to, rip out of that cage. When you saw that dunk that he had in transition last night, that was fierce. You know what I mean? Like that was somebody that has star potential. And so I've said it all season. Bilal Coulibaly, he's definitely a 3 and D. That's we already know. We see that he's a 3 and D. You saw how he pushed tempo last night. He was able to, create off the dribble. He was able to,
Hmm.
spot up. He was able to get to the rim at ease. He even said in the post game that he noticed that the way the defender was guarding him in transition, he knew that he couldn't get to him because of his speed, and
Hmm.
that's when he had that dunk. But look, I love the kid. I think that he's a phenomenal rookie. I think he's going to be great for us. I personally would love to see him start and get about 30 minutes a game. Like I really want his usage to go up at this point. But watching last night's game, the Wizards actually shot well from the field at 56%. I think, the turnovers weren't too bad. Um, we shot the ball well from three as well. We shot 40%. We didn't miss a free throw. We had 39 assists as a team. That's rare. I mean, when do you see this team, assist at that number? I mean, 39 assists is very, very good. We had 64 points in the paint, which is also a great number for this team. Fast break points. They highlighted this point in the post game last night on Monumental. I thought, there were some things that this team did that was different than normal games. And
Hmm.
so all of these things, not missing free throws, points in the paint, fast break points, bench points, we outscored them by 20 on bench points, right?
Right.
We built a 10-point lead.
Right.
And then obviously the issue was I always talk about this, the last 6 minutes of the game or whatever. You don't put Jordan Poole back in until 5 minutes left. Bilal is on the bench at this point. He's been playing great up until that point. This obviously would go towards your argument that he knows how to lose the game because he made that adjustment. But at the same time, this isn't anything new. He's always done this. So that's the only thing that I would have to say to that. And then the last point is Jordan Poole played efficient, right? He had an efficient shooting.
Yes.
He was 10 for 16 from the field. Um, Kuzma didn't really, give us normal Kuzma numbers. Maybe if he played a little bit better, we come away with that win. But 14 off the bench from Bilal, man, that's the bright spot for me. Uh,
Yeah.
Kispert added 16 and he was 4 for 5 from three. So I think we got to highlight that. But like I said, man, I mean, Bilal, I personally would love to see this kid get 30 minutes a game starting at the two or the three. Move Jordan Poole to the one.
Hmm.
Tyus on the bench. Tyus been playing great. He could come in, no problem off the bench, still contribute. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Since we disagreeing, one of the many different topics we've always disagreed on. You ready for this one?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Did Ted try and pursue Kevin Durant during the year?
Ah, man, oh man, oh man. That is a very, very good question. Um, at one point, I thought he was trying to pursue him. So I'm not even going to sit there and say that I didn't. At one point, I thought he did because he never debunked those rumors.
Okay.
And that, we had a conversation about that he just enjoyed the fact that our name was even brought up on a national, just on a national scale connected to KD. But then after a while, I started thinking like, I don't know if it's a possibility. And then when he came out of his own mouth, and I'm talking about KD saying that he didn't want to play in Washington, then that's when I pretty much just scrapped that and said it's not gonna happen. So for a moment, yeah, I kind of got suckered into that whole KD to DC fiasco.
Okay. Okay. Well, you know where I stood.
Oh
I
yeah,
felt like Ted never really ever tried to pursue Kevin Durant. And you and I, we always had that back and forth. Let me say this though. Yeah, you got suckered into the KD to DC thing, but I think you were also kind of looking at it that Ted was going to do his due diligence to try to, be the owner that we thought he was going to be for the city at one time. Is that
right.
is that right or wrong?
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right.
So where did it actually turn for you that you didn't, I guess the expectations were let down for you? Was it the Kevin Durant thing or was it something else?
What happened right after it? You
Okay.
know, we focused. Now, this is another part where you and I disagreed, and that's when the attention was focused on Al Horford. And I always said, you know what, man, Al Horford actually used us for leverage. Because it was a deal on the table between Al Horford and the Wizards, but then the Celtics just came in and offered a little bit more money, and Al Horford went there. And I think it was a rumor that Al Horford's wife had family in Boston or something on the level of that. So that was supposedly been the reason why he also made the decision. And then we turn around and sign Mahimi and Andrew Nicholson right after that. And
Mm.
you know how that went.
Well, with me, I always felt like, we were pursuing Al Horford over Kevin Durant because Al Horford was the piece that we needed to add with John Wall. We
Mm,
always wanted to, I felt like we wanted to replace that Gortat dynamic. And I thought that Al Horford at the time was more of a realistic possibility. Now, obviously, where we disagreed was you saying that you believe that uh, Ted actually at one time wanted to go with Kevin Durant, and then I said no. I think it was more realistic that the Wizards wanted to go with Al Horford. Um, I guess at the end of the day, it didn't matter. Al Horford went to the Celtics, became a thorn in our ass. But
hmm
but I felt like at the time for sure that Al Horford was more of a realistic possibility. But go ahead. What you got for me?
So what I actually got for you, no. So my question for you is, should we accept that Tommy picks are nothing more than role players?
Should we accept?
Yeah, should we accept that his picks, Tommy Shepard's picks, are nothing more than role players? So
Uh
we're not including Rui because he's not here anymore. So it's only three that's left.
yeah, I would say we should not accept it, but we have no choice because we drafted these guys. So I guess where I'm at is when you look at Corey Kispert, Denny Abdia, right? I think that Johnny Davis, I think that these guys are who they are, right? So um are they going to be more than who we believe they're going to be? Probably not. But I do believe that there is a spot on, for the future somewhere with Denny. I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that there's a spot somewhere in the future for Corey Kispert. Uh, does it actually mesh well with what we're trying to do, with the young core that we're potentially going to get in the future around those guys? I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that yet. But I asked the question tonight, what player would be instrumental to the future rebuild? And a lot of people in my comments was saying Kuz this, Kuz that, right? But I'm kind of looking at it like, it may have to be a younger player than Kuz. Jordan Poole, obviously, we want him to be that guy. But what if Jordan Poole isn't that guy? So
Right.
what if we have to revert back to some of the role players that Tommy Shepard drafted, like Denny or Kispert, right? So I guess my thing is to answer your question is no, we shouldn't accept it, but we may not have no choice but to accept it.
Okay. So I would say that we should accept it because unfortunately for Denny Avdia, he's going to always be connected to Tyrese Halliburton. As you saw, Tyrese Halliburton put up 27 and 15 in the end season tournament, beating the Milwaukee Bucks. So every time that Tyrese Halliburton has an all-star like game, Wizards Twitter is going to constantly keep pointing back to that 2020 draft. But what Wizards Twitter also have to face the music on is that Tyrese Halliburton actually said, "Thank God when we didn't draft him."
Yeah, he didn't want to come here. Right.
He didn't want to come here, so we have to ask the question of would it really work with him and Bradley Beal? At the time, Tyrese Halliburton was 20 when he was drafted. Bill was 27. So it's a 7 year gap, and you're basically trying to tell a young Tyrese Halliburton, you need to make it work with Bradley Beal. Would he even turn out to be the player that he is if he was in Washington? Most likely the answer is no.
Hmm.
Um, but unfortunately for a guy like Denny, he's at a disadvantage because that's what people want. They want him to actually go to the next level of possibly being a superstar, and he may not be that. He may just be a very good role player for this team, which is not bad.
Right,
But the fact because he's connected to Tyrese Halliburton, that's not going to be good enough.
right.
And then when you look at a guy like Kispert, where he was drafted at number 15, that's not a bad slot. But then, of course, you got Shingun, who was drafted like a few slots after him, and people are looking at him like, oh, he's going to only get better. And Corey Kisper is, what do you look at him as? He's a solid role player. Could he be a Mike Dunleavy Jr.? Could he be a Kyle Korver? That's probably the best you're looking at. But when you're talking about a rebuild, you're looking for foundational pieces. And at this moment, I would have to say that these three guys probably are not those foundational pieces that we're looking for.
Well, if you're looking to disagree with me on that one, I don't disagree. I actually agree with you on that one. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I actually agree with you on that one. I think, it's just it's very important to recognize that now. We're heading into, a time now where we have to be honest with ourselves, right? So if Denny's not that 20 points per game scorer, that's just not who he is. If Kispert isn't that, 15 off the bench, he's not that, right? So if he's not that sharpshooter yet, he's just not that. So can they grow into other roles and possibly fit into a system that makes sense for the Wizards in the future? Sure. But right now I think we all just need to be honest with ourselves that, those guys are who they are, and I don't think that they're going to be more than that until further notice, until
Okay.
proven otherwise.
Okay.
So my second question, yeah, we didn't disagree on that one. So my other question to you, what was Wes, is he actually trying to win these games, or do you think he just knows how to lose?
We're gonna disagree on this one. I
Okay.
think he knows how to lose. That's what he knows how to do. The first 2 years, I think what we agree on is that he was trying to win those games because he was in win now mode. But in year three, when winning is not a concern, and when you do actually have an opportunity to win the games, like perfect example is last night. We were actually in the game, and then West decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to sit you down, Bilal. Even though you've been playing well, I'm going to sit you down, and I'm not going to close the game out. Why would you do that? If you have an opportunity to win the game, why would you do that? Can you imagine a coach sitting Michael Jordan down when that's who you need to close the game with? And I'm not saying that Bilal is Michael Jordan.
I
I'm
know
just
you're
saying
not
that
saying that, but
I'm just saying that if you have a core, or if you have at least a couple of guys that give you the best opportunity to win the game, why would you sit them down unless you really want to lose the damn game? The only game that I would say that he was trying to win is the Pistons because it was just the damn Pistons. But when
yeah,
you're playing these other teams, man, and
yeah.
you and I talked about this, it seems like Wes is still stuck in the win now. Why are you stuck on win now when you should be developing these guys? So one way you can develop Bilal is playing him in the crunch time.
Mhm.
But you decide to sit him down and put somebody in that's cold. Come on, man. And you've been doing this the whole time you've been here.
Right. And well, you already know we talk about this offline. I always go back to Wes saying in his post games, I did what I felt was necessary to win the game. Whether you feel like he's lying or not, that's what he says. And he says,
Liar.
well, I guess he didn't do it. I guess we didn't do enough down the stretch to close the games. I guess we didn't do enough to win the game. We got to learn how to close these games. He's always referencing things that he felt was suitable enough to win the game. So the reason why I say that I believe that he's trying to win the games is number one, that number two, how many times has Wes actually gone with a lineup too long, right? How many times? And yes, I understand what you're saying about him taking players out the game and not bringing players back in. I get that. But Wes is really in his own head when it comes down to these games. Now, here's my thing. When it comes down to how we lose these games, okay, Jose, what type of lineup does he normally have at the end of the game?
What type of lineup he normally has? Usually he sticks with his starting lineup, and normally the backcourt is Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole. He's sticking with that. But we don't, the lineup he normally goes with is a lineup that's not playing defense. And it's usually somebody that's cold. It's somebody that's playing terrible. It's either one or the other. Kuzma might have had a good game, but Jordan Poole's having a terrible game. But he's but it reminds me like what he used to do last season with Bradley Beal. If Bradley Beal was playing terrible, he would just still keep him in the game regardless. But then he would punish the young guys for whatever reason. So I still with this season, I just look at it like you just you really must be trying to lose these games because you know for a fact we're not going to win. But if you're actually letting a guy like Bilal close the game, I think majority of us will be pretty okay with that if we lose.
Well, let's go back to the previous years. The
Hmm.
same mistakes he's making this year, he was making those mistakes last season and the season before this season or
Right,
last season. So
right, right.
he's been making the same mistakes. This season isn't any different. So my thing is if he so us basically saying that he's losing these games, he knows how to lose these games, that's giving him too much credit because that's like saying, well, he's good enough to know how to lose these games. He's been making these same coaching mistakes. He's been going with the small lineups uh throughout the game a lot, right? He hasn't played Gafford more than 22 minutes a game over the last
Yeah,
two seasons, right?
right.
He doesn't utilize the lineups, the adjusted lineups that other teams use against us defensively. He doesn't use those same tactics against those teams. So those teams are always outplaying us in down the stretch. That's why I always say we play a great 42 minutes of basketball, but we don't play a great 48 minutes of basketball. But my thing is, K Jose, is how can we say that he is simply knowing how to lose these games if you're blowing 35-point leads, blowing 20-point leads, uh, blowing 50? It doesn't matter how big the lead is. He's been doing that prior to this season. That's just bad coaching. Saying that he's
Agreed.
doing it specifically for this season because we're in a rebuild and because we're, tanking, that's just giving him way too much credit, man.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is bad coaching because at the end of the day, he can't coach with a winning team. He can't coach with a losing team. So the issue that when you look at the last 2 years, and I'm just specifically speak on last season, was he was trying to win games through Bradley Beal. I remember Kuz saying that in a post game. Everybody knows this is Bill's team, and we're going to try to win. Now, I don't think people really understood what he meant when he said that. He basically was telling Wes, "You need to switch it up. We're becoming predictable." We trying to win the game with Bill. Bill turns the ball over. I dribbling the ball off his foot. That's not a good idea. We would start the game by feeding the ball to who? KP. And then in the second half, we go away from that. Because what are we doing? We're too busy trying to win the game through Bradley Bill. Now we go into this season. We're pretty much trying to ride off the coattail of either Kuz or Poole, whichever one of those guys is hot. Lately, it's been Kuzma that's been hot throughout the season, and Poole has been struggling. But it's still, we're trying to win the games through those two guys. Even though the bench actually will be playing better than the starters. We've seen that throughout the season. But West will still continue to go with his starting lineup to try to win the game. Because I don't know if his issue is, you know what his issue is?
You just
It,
said it.
yeah,
He
but you know what his issue when it comes down to that? What Wes's issue is he doesn't want to hurt egos. And I'm like, what's your problem, bro? This is the problem that you and I had when he was hired. he needs to understand that, hey, if Poole is out there loafing on defense, or if Kuz is out there loafing on defense, it is okay to sit them guys down and make a statement and saying, I'm not gonna play you. Randy Whitman did it. He used to do it with Wall and Bill all the damn time. But West just doesn't have the balls to do that.
He doesn't
So
have,
at the end of it,
I agree with that. He doesn't have the balls to hold those players accountable.
but he holds the young guys accountable.
Right. He holds the young guys accountable. He'll bench Poole all fourth, right? He'll bench Denny all fourth. He won't put Jordan Poole back in the game until 5 minutes left. He'll
Or
bench,
not put him in the game at all.
right, or right, correct. But at the end of the day, that's it's indicative of how he coaches though. So just because he does that now doesn't mean that that's a saving grace for his bad coaching or that he just knows how to lose these games. It's more so saying you don't know what it takes to win these games because other teams are doing what they're supposed to do to win the games. And like, take for example the Charlotte Hornets game, at home. Like, we were up in that game. We were up, what, 16, 17 points, I believe, at one point in that game, right? And we know how to lose these games because Wes makes late game decisions that hamper the team. And these are same decisions that go back and date back 2 seasons ago. So my thing is we keep saying he knows how to lose, but it's more of like he makes the wrong coaching mistakes over and over and over again. And I know you see Wizards Twitter, everyone keeps saying the same thing. They're like, how can you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again? But I mean, hey, look, at the end of the day, do I understand that this season's about losing? Sure. But I also understand that how we lose, it's either going to save Wes's job or it could determine Wes's job. And I think as long as people are saying he's the tank commander, then it saves Wes's job. And that's the problem that I
Mm-hmm.
have. Because I'm like, stop giving this man a title like he knows what he's doing. Because it makes it look like he can turn it on if we put together a great team. He knows how to say, okay, I'm tired of losing now. Let me make the adjustments to start winning again. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
problem that I have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I don't see him ever turning it on and knowing exactly what it takes to win because he didn't do it the last 2 seasons. So
That's
I
what you
just, yeah, he doesn't. So, but I still feel that he knows exactly what it takes to lose a damn game because he's doing a pretty good job of it, especially this season.
I mean, he and my thing is what's crazy about that is I just think that this season it all was going to sum up this season anyway from the previous 2 years, that the culture issue that we had the previous 2 seasons, right? The coaching mishaps, the problems. We weren't going to have a good season this year regardless. If you had brought the same damn team back this season, we just might be 3-17 too. That's where I'm
you
at.
you're right about that.
That's
You're
where
absolutely
I'm
right.
at. Okay.
And a lot of that would have been on coaching and the roster when it comes down to that.
So we'll pick up these disagreements on the second episode.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
we'll go ahead and end part one. We'll
Yep.
come back on part two, continue with the disagreements because I definitely want to ask you something pertaining to Koulibaly.
All right. Let's make it happen. Make sure you guys tune in to part 2. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to part two of State of the Wizards, and we are going to continue the segment of Do you agree or disagree? So, Decan, I got a question for you. What were your initial thoughts on the Koulibaly pick, and what has changed since the season started?
Well, my initial thoughts on the Koulibaly pick was simple. Who is this kid? I knew who Cam Whitmore was. Um, that was my pick. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
wanted Cam Whitmore. You know it. I was advocating for that pick. I said he was pro ready. but I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people that said Cam was a top five pick. If we was going to get five, we would go with him outside of other like Asor or Amen Thompson. So you know that didn't happen. So I want to say a week prior to the draft, there was some folks on Wizards Twitter who was posting about Bilal, and I saw Bilal's name later on in the draft board. So I want to say during the time we were actually talking about draft prospects, top 10 draft prospects, Bilal's name was nowhere near it. I want to say a month leading into the draft. And then I want to say 2 weeks I want to say 2 weeks before the draft, when I finally saw like some of the highlights of Bilal, and they said, this kid is going to be special. This is one of the draft picks that I think the Wizards are high on. That's when I was like, okay, I see what everyone's talking about, but I still wasn't there yet. And I think that's why you over there smirking, because I wasn't there yet. I'll be honest, I wasn't there yet. And then when we picked him, I said, man, I see why people were saying the things that they were saying about him, because when you look at his highlights, what you making that face for?
You sure about that?
Yeah, what did I say? What did I
Yo,
say?
I'm gonna let you go ahead and
Yeah, yeah,
finish.
yeah. Because I'm like, because when we drafted him, I said, I see what people are saying about the kid. Like, I mean, he was definitely showing the athleticism. He was showing the defensive effort on both ends of the court. We knew, again, it was Victor Wembanyama's teammate. So that's what I saw. I saw, oh, this is just Wemby's teammate. And going into the night of the pick, I said I liked the pick. And I said I didn't have a problem with the pick. Even got tweets that can support my argument for the pick. I wasn't as high as Cam, but
Hmm.
I was still high on the kid in that pick, because I said to myself, I said, look, can nothing get worse than Johnny Davis? So if it's not Cam Whitmore, okay, is Bilal going to be better than Johnny Davis? I saw that. I said, okay, he's going to be better than Johnny Davis. And that was where I was going after that. Now, where I'm at now, obviously, I feel like we got the steal of the draft, because I truly feel like this kid is doing more than what a lot of people believe that he was ever going to do.
Hmm.
He's literally showing that he could be a lockdown defender,
Yeah.
right? Of course, this is the NBA, so he's guarding very talented players, but as a rookie, I feel like he's standing on his own too. And like, I'm still a Cam Whitmore guy. Like, I still love Cam's game. I think that it doesn't really matter which way you go if you were the Wizards, if it was Cam or if it was Bilal, because I think both would have had to prove to the Wizards organization that they could play. But clearly, Bilal right now is showing that he's not just head and shoulders above, some of the other picks within the draft class in the lottery. He's showing that he could potentially be, again, the steal of the draft. And that's kind of, how I see it now. But go ahead. Go ahead and tell me, what was I saying prior to the
Okay.
draft?
So I remember prior to the draft, you like you stated, you was pro Cam Whitmore. You said he was pro ready. He's the type of player that we need. When I started seeing highlights of Cam Whitmore, I saw a little bit of um, Miles Bridges, maybe a slight bit of Karan Butler, but I saw some of Miles Bridges. So I agree with you that, yeah, he's pro ready. But then when I started hearing about Bilal, and I remember somebody on Twitter was constantly talking about how he, got his information kind of doesn't matter. But he was probably the only person I remember talking about him the most. I started looking at his highlights and I said, okay, I see something in him. So then I was out of town when we had the draft, and you text me and say, "Hey, look, Bilal is the pick," and I said to you, I said, "Well, my dude, I had a feeling we was going to draft him, and the only reason why because like a few days prior, I was reading that Will Dawkins was already scouting him when he was with OKC."
Right. So I think your thought process was we're gonna get Cam. That's where I was at. And then we ended up drafting Bilal, and you said I knew we were gonna get him, or I had a feeling we were gonna get him. So you weren't ever sold on the Cam Whitmore pick.
I mean, I was sold on Cam Ward. It wouldn't have mattered either way. I wouldn't have been disappointed, but I had this feeling that Bilal was going to be that guy. And when it
Okay.
came down to Cam, because we saw that he dropped lower than what people was even expecting him to drop. I don't know if the medical, if he had something, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what his
That
medical
never
inf.
that was never confirmed or anything.
Yeah,
So
so I don't know what it was that the reason why he dropped. But when we started playing summer league games and we got a chance to see Bilal, I said, okay, you know what? This kid might be a little bit better than advertised. And you was like, yeah, I'm actually seeing a little bit more in him. But then at the same time, Cam Whitmore was out there cooking. I ain't even gonna lie. He was cooking in the summer league. And I remember you DM me and you sent me a highlight of Cam Whitmore. I said to you, I said, yeah, Cam Whitmore played, my dude. I said, but I think we're all right with Bilal. And you said, I just hope that we don't regret passing up on Cam Whitmore. I remember you saying that.
mhm.
And I was like, I get why you said that. I understood why you said that, but I could tell you was kind of like just still on that fence. Like I mean, I like we got Bilal, but I just really hope that Cam Whitmore don't turn into this player that might be just. I don't want to say like the Tyrese Halliburton situation, but maybe that's could have probably what it might have been, and then Bilal would have just been okay, but not great.
Yeah,
But now we fast forward to now,
yeah.
and Bilal has the possibility to be so many different things. Some people think he's Kawhi light. Some people think he could be a Giannis if he gets muscle. Some people compared him to Paul George. Some people have compared him to Scottie Pippen. I mean, the sky's the limit for this kid. And this is the most excited I've been of a draft pick since John Wall.
Yeah.
It says a lot compared to what we had to deal with the last, 10 years?
Well, that's what I was about to say. I'm suffering from draft PTSD, and you already know it. Like I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. I said, we don't value the draft. What was one of the main things that I've always said to you leading up to this draft? This is a potential miss again. Regardless of who's in the front office, we don't value the draft. But as you see with this pick, there was some real due diligence done with this pick. You know what I was thinking about the other day? Actually, it was yesterday I was thinking about it. I was saying to myself, or I was asking myself, did Will Dawkins draft Jalen Williams? Like I know Sam Presti gets all of the credit, but the scouting of these players,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how OKC is built up now. Will
Mm-hmm.
Dawkins has to get some credit somewhere with those picks.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think to answer your question, I want to say Will Dawkins was the one who scouted Jalen Williams because he was scouting Bilal. So I would
Correct.
actually say yes, he was scouting. And then you think about what's his name, Asame Jing, who was drafted by the Knicks, and then they traded him his rights over there to OKC. So that's the reason why I trusted Will Dawkins when he drafted Bilal. And I get what you're saying that you had that draft syndrome. A lot of people has that draft syndrome. I was just having a conversation just now about Johnny Davis because you saw the rumor mill about us being interested in Patrick Willis. I would prefer us to be interested in Patrick Ewing instead of Patrick Willis, but
I mean
I said
Patrick
I would give
Williams.
up.
Patrick
It,
Williams.
well,
You said Willis.
yeah, Patrick Williams, whatever, Patrick Williams. But I would prefer to move Johnny Davis because I look at it like, well, you're just trading a ham sandwich for a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
But I was being told, well, hey, it's not Johnny Davis's fault, the reason why he is the player that he is. Okay, that may be true, but that doesn't excuse the fact that he was drafted. We shouldn't have drafted him in the first place. What are you guys seeing? So now that we got Will Dawkins in play, okay, we got him. I'm just gonna trust whatever picks that he does going forward. Now I know there's gonna be some misses. I'm not expecting him to bat 100 all the time. He's gonna miss. But if he has multiple draft picks and a few of them he misses on and a few of them he makes, that's a lot better than what we saw from Ernie Grunfeld and Tommy Shepard combined.
I agree. I totally agree with that. I think that Will Dawkins he's bound to hit on maybe two, three draft picks. He may miss and swing on some, but I truly believe that whatever his short term goals are for our draft picks, those are going to be way better than what Ernie and Tommy did in 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trusting that process. Let's put it that way. Like that was the kind of faith that I needed to have in Bilal's pick to begin with. Like I needed this pick for me to finally get back to that. Okay, I'm starting to trust the organization again to draft players that I feel that we need, and that we're drafting on best player available because outside of Victor Wembanyama, who we were only one ping pong ball away to get, the next best player, in my opinion, probably was his teammate, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't get the number one, if you didn't get 1A, then at least try to get 1B and see if, he develops into a star because we know Victor Wembanyama is going to be a star. We know that, he's going to be voted in the All-Star games because of who he is, because of his size. You already saw how touted he was coming out. So Will Dawkins is a genius just off of that alone, but it's not just his team.
Mm-hmm.
It's this kid. It's like allowing him to shine because the other guy was just 7'4", 7'5". Bilal gets drafted in the NBA regardless of Victor Wembanyama. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, let's let this kid get his shine because he's been really in the shadows in a sense. If Victor wasn't there, it would have been his team regardless. And he
Mm-hmm.
would have been the guy that he would have been the 1A, really. Let's say if Victor never existed and that team was playing well, I still think that Bilal gets drafted top 10 and he probably could have been top 5 just based off of the skill sets and based off of, the fact that the kid he just looks like a winner, based off of everything that we've seen so far in his game. He's putting it together pretty quickly at that.
Okay.
So let's move on. I actually have a question for you, and then we'll dive um into one last question or a couple of other questions. But um here's a hypothetical for you. And I think we would disagree on this. That's why I put it together. If John Wall never got injured and gave the leadership keys to Bradley Beal, do you think at the very least he could have led us to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Bradley Beal.
If John Wall never got injured and he gave those leadership keys to Bradley Beal, do you
Mm,
think Bradley Beal could have at the very least led us to the Eastern Conference Finals?
that's a good question. That's a very good question.
I mean,
Damn.
I'm just gonna see. I'm throwing out the hypothetical to see if we're gonna disagree on it.
Hmm. If it was the Bradley Beal that was trending at that time, putting up 26 points, John Wall being his point guard, could he have done it? Hmm. I don't know.
I need
I
a
don't know if he.
I need a yes or no.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Okay.
say no.
Tell me why you tell me why you say no.
So if memory serves correct, at the time, Martin Gortat was already traded. So we will be relying on Thomas Bryant. We would have been relying on Mo Wagner. These will be our big men at the time. This is even before Robin Lopez because we would have never got him. We would have never got Daniel Gafford. So I don't think we would have done it. Do I think we would have got close? Yeah.
With the
I
healthy
don't think so.
now, with the healthy Wall now, he ain't injured.
With a healthy Wall, maybe, but I just, I mean, for me, I think the front court will be the issue because
Okay.
the front court had changed at that time. So we really we had pretty much. Well, you know what? Let me rethink that.
Up,
Hold
up,
up for a second.
up, up, up,
Let me
up.
rethink that because we just drafted Rui. So I forgot that we drafted Rui at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very possible we now that I think about it, it's very possible we could have because John Wall would have actually made Rui be the type of player that we was hoping he would have been.
Okay.
Davies Bertans would have actually been shooting threes.
Now we
So I
now we
so
now we here. Okay.
so now that I think about it, 'cause I had to think about who we drafted. I think it was very possible that we could do that. But at the end of the day, guess what we would have been relying on? Even though Bradley Bill would have been having the keys, guess who we still would have been relying on to kind of close the game out?
Wall. Right. All right. So here's why I believe that we would have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals with Bradley Beal as the leader. John Wall never got a chance to play with a 30 points per game Bradley Beal. So if we're talking about a healthy Wall with that Bradley Beal, I'm talking about, think about some of the teams that we had to play, in the playoffs, the Sixers that year when we had Russ. In my opinion, I think with a healthy Wall, we get past that team.
Agreed. Well, we wouldn't have been no eighth seed either, but continue.
Well, yeah, because we was an AC. That's my point. Like we would have been a higher seed. And that was Rui's first year. He was a rookie, right?
Yeah.
So so and I truly think too that,
I
some of
think it
those
was the
moves.
second year.
No,
I think that was the second year. Or
no,
was
no,
it
no,
his first?
no, it was his first. He was a rookie.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right.
He was a rookie the year we made the playoffs with Russ.
You sure about it? I thought Denny was a rookie
Or
because
maybe.
Rui was
Oh,
drafted in
you're right.
2019.
You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. You're right. Yeah,
Continue though.
but that was the bubble. What was that? The bubble year, or that was after the bubble year.
Yeah.
Rui played in the bubble.
Right. Right.
Okay, so anyway, I think we're a better team than that HC team. So my thing is I'm looking at the run that we probably could have gone on, and that may have been the last hurrah between, with the two, was that 2020 season, when, Russ was here. Because I truly believe that you did have a squad. Now, granted, we didn't win as many games. It was a shortened season. Was it 72 games that year?
Yeah, it was.
We didn't win as many games as projected. But I think with a healthy Wall, like I said, just going back to that point, we would have finished higher than eighth. We would have definitely won more than 34 games. Who was in that playoffs? The Sixers. Who else was in that playoffs? I can't remember now off the top
I
of my.
think Mil- I think Milwaukee was in there.
Yeah, there was some teams in there that would probably would have gave us some problems. But the
Yeah.
point is that I truly believe that if you would have put a 20 and 10 Wall next to that 30 points per game Bill, I think you're looking at an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. Now, whether or
Right.
not we win it, that's a whole another question. I don't think we actually win it, and I don't think we go to the finals. But at the very least, that's my argument for a Bill led with healthy Wall Wizards team. And I'm using that 2020 season when Russ was here. If you replace Russ, even though Russ was great towards the end of the year, like we had Gafford that season, Rui that year, right? I think Rui was starting, right? So
Hmm.
Rui, Wall, Bill, Gafford. When Gafford first got here playing the way that he's playing, if you still make that move, man, I'll be honest with you. Because Wall played defense. I'm not saying Russ wasn't, but Russ wasn't.
He wasn't.
I don't think Russ, it's a different type of player when we talk about Wall being the two-way guard that he was in 2016, 2017, and Russ being the triple-double only guard for us in 2020. It's still a different type of dynamic. The impact was different, I think.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Wall was one thing we knew we could count on Wall in the playoffs in the first round. When we played the 76ers that year, the 2020-2021 season, Russ disappeared
Mhm.
against the 76ers. And he's been known to do that anyway. When he's the guy, he's known to disappear in the first round,
Yeah.
since KD left.
Yeah.
So if Wall was on the team at the end of the day, like Wall was the glue. So even if he wasn't the man and you hand that ball, you hand the keys over to Bill, it's still going to go through Wall to make it happen. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
just was going to be that way. It was just going to turn out that way. Like Gilbert, when he played for the Wizards, he wasn't the leader of the team, but it was still his team. Antoine Jameson and Karan Butler were the leaders. But when it came down to who put asses in the seats, it was Gilbert that did it. So it would have been no different if we had a healthy Wall. But unfortunately, we were robbed of that healthy Wall. He was told when he asked, "Hey, you want to run it back?" He got "I'll think about it." Next thing you know, he was traded.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, yeah, I truly believe that if I'm just looking at the fact that these two players never got a chance to play together when one player improved more. And so I just look at, yeah, the competition kind of got better in the East a little bit, but we would have been trending in a direction, I think, not saying that it would have made Tommy Shepard look good, but trading Wall away, in my opinion, was Tommy Shepard's mistake. And if you allowed him to, well, I guess him being injured is one thing, right? So if he was healthy, maybe that trade never happens. But I'm just making the point that hey, if you put him with that 30 points per game, Bradley Beal, I think we finish higher in the East. We probably don't even play the Sixers in the first round. We probably play somebody else. We may meet the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's kind of where I was at. Or you meet whoever was it the Bucks that was it the Bucks that year? I'd have
Hmm
to I'd have to go back and jog my memory on that.
I think the Bucks did win the championship or did they win it in 2022?
Yeah, I
I
believe
think they won. I can't remember who won it in 2021, but I think the Bucks won it in 2022.
2019 was the Raptors,
Yeah,
and then
2020 was the Lakers.
2020 was the Lakers, and then was it 2021 then?
It was who won it. I'm trying. We're trying to remember who won the championship in 2021. Golden State, right? It was Golden State.
Yeah, Golden State. Yeah.
Yeah, Golden State won.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm kind of getting it confused with because I'm thinking about COVID. I'm thinking about the bubble. I'm thinking about the year after COVID when they played with no fans in the stands. That
Yeah, yeah,
72-win season.
yeah, yeah.
Who
The
was in
Lakers
the
won it.
who was
They
in the Eastern Conference Finals that year?
won it 2020.
Yeah, who was in the Eastern Conference Finals that year?
Well, it was Miami. I can't remember who they played against because Miami made the finals in 2020. Was it Miami and the Bucks that played in the finals? I know Miami was in there because they won. They were in the finals.
In my opinion, we would have went to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. All right. And did you have any other questions? I think we can. I don't know if you have any other questions to disagree on with that, with this segment.
Well, it's not necessarily a question to disagree on, but I do have a question for you.
Hmm.
So the rebuild or demolition, as you want to call it, is happening right now. Do you think that it should have happened a long time ago? And if so, why and when should it have happened? When should it have started?
Well, first of all, it's funny you mentioned that, B, or you asked that question because we literally was just talking about the season that I think we should have actually pushed the rebuild, which
Mm-hmm.
2019, 2018,
Mm-hmm.
2019 season. I think as soon as John Wall got traded, you should have traded Bradley Beal as well. I think that at that point in time, you could have garnered enough assets for Bradley Beal when Bradley Beal's value was higher. than it was when we finally decided to move on past Bradley Bill. So I'm looking at that season um when we traded away Russ for Kuz, uh KCP, right? I'm looking at that year because that year, I think when Russ was on his way out, even he said, "Hey, to Bradley Bill, why don't you ask out too?" Even then, Bradley Bill, we could have gotten something back for Bradley Bill. And if you look at the return that we got for Russ, it wasn't everything, but we did get a Kyle Kuzma in return. So you really wonder at that time, what would Bradley Bill had netted us on the market if we got those guys back in return and we got that haul back in return for Russell Westbrook? That would have been an ideal situation at that time because then we're pushing the rebuild button when Rui is what is he in the second year at that point?
Yeah.
Denny's a rookie. Um, you got guys that's in that timeline where you can build up at that point. But to me, it's like we just didn't want to, for whatever reason, build around those young pieces. And it's obvious at this point it's because they didn't believe that those were the pieces. We did it purposely. Like they believed that they weren't going to be, the next franchise players or the star players for this team. They were only going to be contributors, high level contributors, for why they were drafted in the first place. That's a Tommy mistake, right? That's just a clear Tommy mistake. So anyway, not to sound too long winded with this, I think a couple of years ago we should have pushed that button when Russ asked out, traded away Russ and traded away Bill. You could have even moved Bill before that. But I'm just saying that at least that would have saved us 2 years, on the rebuild.
Okay, I agree. I think that they definitely should have pushed the rebuild button a long time ago. Definitely when John Wall was traded, when they decided not to do it, they should have done it when Russ asked out. But we already know that the GM and the owner didn't want to move on past him. They've already made that commitment. They was going to pay him the 251, shot themselves in the foot by agreeing to give him the no trade clause. And then should I say, and Will Dawkins and Michael Winger, they had to do the best they could moving Bradley Bill. Now, I remember some people said, well, you didn't have to move Bradley Bill right away. You could have waited. Waited for what? You know, you see what's going on with him out there in Phoenix. That could have been us.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to move him when we had to move him.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have any leverage to sit there and say, well, we're not just going to move you, Bill. This wasn't a Damian Lillard situation where we could just say, well, we're not going to listen to whichever team you want to go to. We had to abide by that because of the no trade clause. But with the rebuild going right now, the demolition that's going right now, I know a lot of fans have PTSD because they're saying, well, I don't want it to last 10 years. I don't want it to last 15 years. I get that. But we have a different front office. And I'm always saying, you got to allow this front office to do their job.
Yeah,
You can't hold them accountable for something that the previous front office didn't do. They
correct.
weren't the ones who gave Bill that contract. They weren't the ones who was willing to overpay for KP and all those other players. They didn't do this.
I mean, they
They
saved us. They saved us from cap hell. That's what
They
happened.
saved us from cap hell. And when you think about it, when Tommy got the job, it was all about cap flexibility. We didn't have cap flexibility, not one time during his tenure. Some
That's
people think
correct.
we did, but we really didn't have it. We just now got it once we moved Bradley Bill's contract. So at the end of the day, my point is that we have to let this new front office have the opportunity to build this team the right way. But we can't assume that it's going to take 10 years just because it took the Pistons, or if it took, better yet, the Sacramento Kings 15 seasons. We're not the Kings.
Right. Right.
But guess what? The Kings are doing, they got it right. They're going to be in the playoffs, and where we going to be at home. We was at home last season. We were trying to win now. So
Yeah.
just let this new front office have the opportunity to right the ship. And so far they're doing a pretty good job. The only gripe I have is retaining West.
Yep. Same here. I agree. I agree. Um, my last question to you, and we have about 7 minutes left. Um, K Jose, are the Wizards ready to give the keys to Bilal? And if not, what do you think is getting in the way of that decision?
Are they ready to give them the keys? I'm going to say no, even though I think that they should, but I'm going to say no. What's getting in the way is the veterans that are still left here on this team. That's what I think is getting in the way. The veterans that are still left on this team, Wes Unseld coaching your potential franchise player. We both agree that we don't want him to do that. So that's what's actually standing in the way. You can't give the keys to Bilal if you have fans that don't want to move on past Kyle Kuzma, who pretty much is not a part of the future.
I
I
mean,
know that's going to trigger people, but it is the truth. It's strictly business.
we talk about it, right? So here's the thing. The question that I asked tonight on my Twitter and Wiz Takes was, was there an instrumental player that we could keep on this team? Like you know how Miles Turner for the Pacers, he's instrumental to their rebuild now. He's a vet over there. He's somebody that's contributing at a high level, but he wanted to be traded at one time, but now he's not. So I asked the question, is there, a player on this team that could be the Miles Turner of the rebuild? Is there a bright spot for a new Miles Turner on the Wizards team? And the responses I got was yes, of course, Kyle Kuzma, right? I even got some Gaffords in there. I even got Denny in there, right? And my response to that is simple. You know, if it doesn't benefit the younger player who you're building around, then it's time to move on past those vets, right? And so my answer to that is there's nobody. There's not a Miles Turner on this team. It's not a trick question. It's as simple as no, we don't have that player on this team. I love Kyle Kuzma, but there is literally no Miles Turner on this team. All right. Kyle Kuzma gives us exactly what we needed at the time when Kyle Kuzma was a part of the win now, right? But as you saw, that wasn't enough. I think you made the point that Kuzma's been on this team now for 2 seasons, and we finished 35 and 47 in both years. So his impact wasn't felt, even though he was still contributing. This year with 3 and 17 so far. And his impact isn't felt, even though he's averaging 23 points per game. So the point is that do we want Kyle Kuzma to keep putting up 25, 26 on a bad team, getting in the way of the development of possibly Bilal, usage going up, averaging more points? We don't want that. At least with the Miles Turner situation, is he's a big man that doesn't demand the ball a lot. He plays his position. He knows his spots. He knows his role. But Tyrese Halliburton is over there, and his usage is higher than Miles Turner, right? So there is no Miles on this team. There's no Miles on this team because there's no player who is just going to allow somebody like Bilal to be the commander in a sense without somebody else saying, "Hey, I'm the commander first." And that's the problem. The problem is that there's too many there's still too many Chiefs and not enough Indians to give Bilal the keys. So to answer that question, I agree with you that I don't think that the Wizards are ready because of the simple fact that there's some vets in the way as well. Do I do I really want them to hand the keys over to Bilal? Of course. I want his usage to go up. I want his usage to skyrocket. I want him to have the ball in his hands in crunch time. I want him to finish games. I want him to average 30 minutes per game. I want to see this kid fully maximized, you know, if we can. I want to see that now. That's where I'm at.
Agreed. Well said. So, do you have any final thoughts before we conclude on this episode?
Um, No, this was a fun episode. I think, you know, we probably didn't get to all of the questions that we really wanted to ask tonight, but it's cool because I think this episode was much needed. It's our 40th episode. We've come a long way, my dude. And
Hmm.
as your co-host to you, your partner, I just want to say, man, I appreciate you, everything you've ever contributed to State of the Wizards. And those people that's in the comments section that's constantly trying to, critique and criticize, cool, criticize it, but at least watch the full episode. Get to this point in the episode where you're at the end. Don't watch the first 10 minutes and say, "Oh, I don't like it. It's too boring." Even if you have to skip to the end. See that we're talking about things that people care about, right? So, that's all I got, man. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say? We got a minute.
No, not really. I mean, to your point, you said everything. I agree. I mean, again, if people are looking for Skip Bayless or Stephen A, you're not gonna find that here, man. So you know where you can look at that. Go to ESPN. We not ESPN. We SOW.
Exactly.
SOB.
And on
So
that note,
you guys have a wonderful night. Like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter and IG. See you on the next one.
peace.